In a moment, we're going to get on our tour bus and a local guide will drive us around and we'll show you a little bit of those highlights as we tour the city, and then we're going into the Louvre Museum.
We're going to drive just on a city tour, and we are going to drive on the way to the Opera Square, where we shall see the old Opera House of Paris. We are just going to see this beautiful building. The opera was started to be built in the year 1858, and here we are moving down in a street where we shall see some of the beautiful jeweler and goldsmiths. And here you find Cartier just there on the right, one of the greatest jeweler here in this area. And you find many of those, Boucheron, Van Cleef & Arpels, Stern, and so on. You see, they're all here around in this district. What you find ahead, it's Vendome Square. Just in the middle here, you got this great column. This square was being designed by Jules Hardouin Mansart. The Vendome Square is where you have the Hotel Ritz. That's one of the most beautiful hotels in the world, the Ritz Hotel. The Rue de Rivoli is having the beautiful houses with the arcades here, just there on the right, okay? Where underneath here you do find some deluxe shops. We going to the Concorde Square, okay? And to the right we got there the Madeleine Church, Église de la Madeleine, Madeleine Church. Now the obelisk here, just there in the middle, is the obelisk of Luxor. That was a gift of Egypt, and it was erected there in 1836. It is in fact the oldest monument in Paris because it's about 3,200 years old.
Of course, the most famous tower is the Eiffel Tower. We always like to stop and get off the bus at the Champ de Mars because here you've got the most splendid view of the Eiffel Tower. So everybody cranks out their cameras and blasts away. You can also buy some cheap postcards and other souvenirs from the wandering merchants out there. It's probably the most photographed monument in the world. When you consider that Paris gets about 55 million visitors every year, and all of those visitors take pictures of the Eiffel Tower. Here we're doing our special group shot. June has everybody's cameras and is clicking away so that all of the group members have their own group shot inside their own camera. And all of the group members also have their own video of the tour thanks to World Traveler that you're watching now. So we find our own cameras, try and pick the same one that you brought, and back on the bus.
Hôtel des Invalides, hotel for disabled soldiers. And there 7,500 disabled soldiers received just lodging and food. And in the middle, they built up the Royal Chapel of Les Invalides. It was then this building which became the National Military Memorial. You're going to see the Rodin Museum, and just in between the trees on your right, the Thinker. Very well-known statue of. We're going to drive on the other side of the big building of Les Invalides, in which you will see some guns which are war trophies, and then we will see the Louvre here. This is the Louvre, the big building down there to the left, building of the Louvre, which was being designed by the days of Henry II and completed by the time of Napoleon III. Between 1540 to 1860, and it is nowadays the largest museum in the world, Museum of the Louvre, in which you find there, of course, the Mona Lisa, the Winged Victory of Samothrace, the Venus of Milo, and thousands of other masterpiece works which are into this exceptional museum, having altogether something like 20 miles of arts exhibition. Oh yes, you won't visit the Louvre in, even in a week, you know, I may say. As we arrive at the end of the street here, we will just pull the bus ahead of us there, in the middle of this Place des Vosges, you see. So I would like to ask you to come with me, and we get into the yard and we shall walk through, and I explain you a little bit the Place des Vosges.
The Place des Vosges is generally considered to be the oldest square in Northern Europe. Copied after the Italian style, which had been prevalent all throughout the Renaissance, 16th century, Place des Vosges was inspired by Catherine de' Medici, who was originally from Florence, and it was built back in the early 1600s for Henry IV. Unfortunately, Henry died before it was completed. He was assassinated, so he never got to live to see this beautiful square surrounded by arcades. There's this covered walkway that has a lot of restaurants and antique shops, as well as private residences all around the square today. When first built, there were 36 palaces around the square. It was called the Place Royale. Adjacent is another beautiful courtyard and palace, the Hôtel de Sully. Now, it's not a hotel where you stay. You wish you could stay in a nice building like this as a visitor to Paris, but it's an hôtel, which was a noble mansion. This was built for one of the ministers of Henry IV back around the same time the Place des Vosges was being constructed. So we're looking at the early 17th century. You see the beautiful mansard roofs, the dormer windows, the sculptural decor dripping from the outside of the building. The palace was first constructed by a notorious gambler, but he lost his entire fortune overnight. So let that be a warning to you. And he had to sell the building, and it was purchased by Sully, who was one of the ministers of Henry IV. Sully was quite old at the time, but he loved to embellish it with these statues. There's 2 sphinxes, there's naked women up on the walls representing the 4 seasons. We also have 4 men representing the ages of mankind. Nowadays, the building houses the Bureau of Historic Monuments, and the inside is occasionally open to the public. It's located in the Marais, just as the Place des Vosges is located here, what was formerly a swamp way back in the 1400s and 1500s, but became a very fashionable part of town in the 16th century. Nearby we pass the Hôtel de Ville, also not a hotel that you check into. It's the City Hall of Paris, and it looks very old, something like the Hôtel du Sully, much bigger though. And yet this building is only 100 years old. It's a reconstruction of a much earlier building that stood on that site. As we drive along, our guide tells us a little bit more about the sites.
At the church here, which is Saint-Séverin, Séverine Church, here just down the right, Séverine Church, which was the latest Gothic church designed in the 16th century in Paris. And further up we shall discover the Sorbonne University. We will see on the left-hand side as well Le Collège de France, in which Pierre and Marie Curie worked there together.
We're continuing our drive on the tourbus through the left bank, the Latin Quarter, and entering now the neighborhood of Saint-Germain, lined with beautiful shops.
A little further down we have the Fine Art Academies, the building here, just here, on your left, just now. And that's where our students coming to just learn any kind of art, you know, architecture, decorative arts, painting, and so on.
The bus drops us back off at our hotel, where we freshen up briefly and then head out for an evening's adventure by metro.